2 days have passed since the scare with the invader. The orcs in the village have been working hard, rebuilding their homes after the ugly fight. The sun is shining brightly, perfect for spending the day outside. But our hero, Gull, is trapped in the doctor's cabin, sleeping incessantly. Gull sleeps with his mouth open, ready to swallow anything, even an annoying fly. And it was exactly one of those that woke him up, making him get out of bed. Finally recovered, after spitting out the insect, a serious and rude orc appeared out of nowhere and slapped him in the face. This is the town doctor, Mr. Buddha's way of welcoming you back to the world of the living. The slap wakes Gull up once and for all, and he starts cursing the doctor, calling him ugly. Mr. Buddha is already fed up with Gull's insults and his constant visits because of his reckless behavior. The only thing that makes Gull put up with all this is Dora, the doctor's assistant. She is a sweetheart and is always there for him. Gull looks around the room, looking for an elf who wanted to speak to the old man at that moment. Buddha remembers that old Gurren asked to see Gull as soon as he woke up, so Gull has to get out of bed, and Dora goes with him, even leaving the doctor's house. Gull can't resist making one more joke. The village has been strangely quiet since the attack. Gull and Dora meet the old man by chance. Gull asks Durin about his 3 youngest housemates. He wants to know if Dova, Kagan and Matu will be there too, but Durin explains that they are helping rebuild the city. They have already recovered from their injuries and are being punished for not following orders, which resulted in more orcs being injured. This news sends a chill down Gull's spine, as he was with the 3 of them. He is afraid of what the old orc might do to him, but Durin says everything will be fine. After a few minutes, they finally reach Ochino, the 3rd level of Puvis. Chief Garrick, although with some cuts, is doing relatively well. Chief Garrick wants to hear the report on casualties from the attack. Oh boy, the messenger quickly says that 32 warriors are injured. Of these, 28 can now walk, 4 are still in bed and 3 orcs have died. The ceremony to burn their bodies has already been organized. As for the demon corpse, it was burned separately. The orcs are working at full steam, trying to rebuild the 3 markets destroyed by the demons and the 11 that the boss himself broke. Old Gurren watches the boss, full of ramen, and judges him silently. There are 10 Malavayas left that are being repaired, along with the mess left by the boss's attack. In comparison, the warrior only made a huge crater. As for old Gurren, he made a hole so deep that not even the builders know how to deal with it. Knowing that he also caused a lot of damage, Gurren, Dura and Gull arrived at the same time. Bob Gull is back after 2 days out of combat and is ready for whatever the boss has for him. It seems that Doratran is quite popular among the orcs. They can't resist shouting, Puvis #1. Even the elders soften their tone when welcoming Dora, who is leader Gek's sister. Gull tried to escape during the salutes but was caught and saluted. Even now, Gull still can't pronounce the Dark Elf's name correctly. It is surprising that his wounds have already healed. Now that Oboy has finished reporting, it's time to address the elves. They have requested a private audience with the elder, and Chief Garen wants everyone to wait outside. The injured orcs don't like this idea, as they feel they deserve to know what happened after the attack. It is heartbreaking to hear about the damage done to everyone and to Puvis. A dark elf from the Peteroja forest in the Elven Kingdom named Renoir began to speak, but Ran wants to discuss her difficult situation in private. The villagers want to understand, but he can't reveal the details of his mission for fear of putting more people in danger. Elder Garen understands that this kind of thing requires discretion. The chief also understands and orders the villagers to wait outside the hall, trusting his judgment. Ran explained that he was on a mission to track down the demons and recover some artifacts stolen from the Elven Kingdom. After a while, he finally found the demon army's base camp and was ready to infiltrate. He used an elven cloak with special ability to hide his presence and managed to pass through the main door without being detected. He used the walls and whatever he could to destroy battalions of demons. Ran knew that even though he was not seen, he needed to be agile. On this mission, one wrong move could mean death. He had to move fast and he knew he could do it. For the sake of the mission, he had to make his way through enemy territory, while stealth consumed a lot of mana. Fortunately, Ran is skilled in these situations. After all, he is an experienced assassin. At first, he thought it would be difficult to find the demon treasure room, but when he saw the door with an epitaph of greed, he realized that his expectations were wrong. He found the treasure room without locks or guards, full of treasures everywhere. Anyone with a bit of brains would find this suspicious, perhaps even a trap. But Ram had no choice. He was almost out of mana from maintaining the stealth skill and needed to finish the mission without mistakes. Then he opened his dimensional bag, turned off stealth, and began putting away the artifacts. At that moment, the guard appeared. The guardian of the place was El Cairo, a monstrous elf hunter. That's why there were no guards around. To make matters worse, El Cairo activated the alarm with a howl. All demons in the base camp had been alerted. Meanwhile, Amphin, a knight's right hand, was relaxing, eating and playing Jack Stone. His rest was interrupted by an explosion at the camp's main entrance. Everyone looked, but didn't see anything worrying. Ran reactivated his stealth, but the elf-hunting beast could sense him from afar. At least the demons didn't see him, but Ran was caught off guard when the beast released a toxic mist that nullified his invisibility. That second was crucial. Vice Captain Izel spotted Ran and, with a mischievous smile, asked Amphion to flip a coin. He obeyed and threw in a gold coin. Izel manipulated it with his right hand and launched it like a bullet, almost breaking the sound barrier. That was what hurt Ran, a damn coin. He looked up and saw Izel's evil face. Ran was in pain and angry, trapped in a sticky situation. A shower of coins rained down on him, each one hitting harder than the last. He sustained some, but the injuries were serious. As he told his story, Chief Gek asked how they managed to hit him. Dark Elf assassins are known for being fast and untouchable. The boss thought he ran like a sheep while Oboy served popcorn, as if they were in a movie. Gull, in turn, was obsessed with how cool those demons' base was. Ran tried to argue that the demons were lucky to have an elven hunting beast as a mascot, and that he could have easily completed the quest. He was putting it all into the narration, but the orcs were lost in their own parlor conversations about hidden bases and smoldering pets and other things. Gull was quite impressed with all the cool details Rand had told. The boy even bragged about having his own secret base, but admitted that the demon's base must have been 10 times cooler. Len was losing his patience while everyone didn't even listen. Rand had to scream in anger to get everyone's attention, something very atypical for a silent killer, but it worked. He got everyone to behave and listen to the rest of the story, even getting a nod of approval from Lawson. Then, the Dark Elf cleared his throat to continue his story. The coin had hit him hard. He blocked part of the impact with his vest, but he still had a deep wound. He had to stitch the wound and use a healing spell to stop the bleeding. This caught the old man's attention. Meanwhile, the vice captain jumped from the top of his tower. Of course, Wumph wouldn't miss the spectacle, even if he had to take his food with him. The two high-ranking demons entered the fray. Izol stayed in the air, waiting for gravity to take effect, while Wumph continued eating his fish balls. The vice captain smiled sinisterly, amused by the fact that the purple mouse had survived the coin toss. Ran wanted to convince himself that he wasn't an evil genius. He tried to be modest, but seeing Izol's arrogant face irritated him. He hated that smile as much as he hated the sun. To face this situation, he had a few tricks up his sleeve. One of them was his magic hook, a rope with a sharp blade that could attach itself to walls. He felt that a demon attacking a dark elf assassin was an insult. All he wanted was to swing through the air and strike the demon back. Even once, Ran dodged the beast's attack with her hook, and the flaming dog didn't like it at all. The beast attacked again, this time with a flaming blade near its legs. She was huge, fierce, and intelligent. With one strike, he cut the magic hook strings, eliminating Rand's main mobility. As he fell, he saw the demonic soldiers approaching anxiously. It didn't look good to him. He was in free fall, and the enemies were already preparing an attack. He assessed the situation and realized that there were two demons who would make contact first. He would have to deal with them first and foremost. Rand took a deep breath, calming herself as she planned her next moves. The solution to almost any problem in his line of work was simple: whip out his blades and do what he did best. The killer had one more shot with his hook, enough to launch himself forward. It was enough to deliver some nasty deaths. A stab to the neck is all that's needed. Using a small, incredibly sharp blade, Ran was about to go into a frenzy with these demons destined to fall under their lethal blows. Every time Ran swung his sword, another demon fell, spitting out blood. He seemed to remind everyone that he was an elite, feared and efficient black assassin. The problem with army bases is that they have endless soldiers, and now Ran was smack dab in the middle of enemy territory. To get out of this mess, a knife alone wouldn't do it. If you thought of two blades, you're right. The chaos continued. Heads, arms, legs, everything flew through the air, and Ran moved like a god of death, killing demon after demon. Now, he focused on the two high-ranking demons. They watched him with curiosity and expectation. Ran increased her speed, turning and moving forward nimbly. He knew that these two would not be as easy to defeat as the others. Ashley Rad's smile made Ran feel like he was making a mistake, but he continued. In the end, we know he lost, being forced to retreat and flee for his life. Losing made him regain his logic. During the turmoil, he exhausted his mana, succumbing to emotions. Ran ran for days, fueled by rage. Gull saved him when he least expected it. I had never seen an orc run so fast. Hearing this from Ran shocked everyone, even Gull. The elf continued, saying that his wounds had reopened from running non-stop for 3 days. He didn't have a chance to rest. When he fainted, the bald boy carried him to the village to get help. Old Gurren knew what was happening from there. The villagers were in shock. They could have avoided casualties if they had surrendered. The chief intervened, saying that they chose to fight and save the stranger. Old Garen was curious. Why was a black assassin chosen for this mission? Ran explained that the elf lord chose him for his skills in stealth and combat. Ran opened her dimensional bag, and a green light filled the room. He believed that the artifact he held, called Edenum, was capable of opening the gates of heaven. When Ran showed the artifact, old Garen punched the ground in anger and frustration. surprising everyone. The impact launched the messenger and the popcorn server into the air. The boss and Delovey were shocked when the food spilled out, and Gull fainted. Gurren became darker than when he faced the high-ranking demons. All this chaos was caused by the mention of Edenum. Garen shouted that the elves made a big mistake. Jess was supposed to protect that artifact with her life. Ran heard the name and was stunned. Even Boss Gek was scared looking at Gurren. Edenum was of immense importance. He helped win the Great War 200 years ago. Garen promised to explain the details later. For now, everyone needed to know that if the artifact's location was discovered, it would be a disaster. Ran explained that evil forces stole the artifact when a shape-shifting demon infiltrated the Elf Kingdom. This demon waited patiently and finally managed to steal Edenum, which explained why the high-ranking demons Isildericha and Amphine were hunting Ran. Gurren was relieved that they had discussed this in private. Even the boss knew it was a serious matter. One thing was certain, the demons were up to something big now. Ran knew she needed to return the artifact to Redstone Forest as quickly as possible. He understood the urgency better than anyone, but before that, I wanted to speak to everyone sincerely. He wanted to express his deep regret for the damage he had caused to the village of Puvis. Old Garen, with all his experience, understood the weight Ran carried. Ran explained that he was not solely responsible for the recent events. Even Lone, who was a bit clumsy with words, couldn't have said it better. Everyone, including the idiot lying there, understood the gravity of the situation. For the first time in her life, Ran felt genuine care from others. This powerful emotion overwhelmed him, causing him to lower his head and kneel. To the orc's surprise, tears began to fall from Ran's eyes. He knew he was not worthy of the lives lost. His words could not fully express his gratitude to the villagers. Ran could only pray that the spirits would bless the village of Puvis and its people. Gurren nodded as the boss tried to ease the tension as usual. Garlone approached Ran and offered a tissue to dry her tears. Ran tried to control her breathing as her tears dried, admiring the orcs for being so determined. On behalf of the Redstone Forest Elf Kingdom, Ran thanked everyone for saving him. Without the orcs, he would have failed. Goran assured the Dark Elf that he was welcome and that they respected his mission, appreciating the trust he showed in sharing confidential information. Gull, always confused, did not fully understand the gravity of the situation. Old Garen then revealed that he had known the Elven Lord for a long time. Chief Girk was skeptical, doubting that the old man had met the Elf Lord, but he received a reprimand from the old man who silenced him with the truth. The old man assured the veracity of his statement, explaining that, in his time, he joined the Elf Lord for a common cause. This revelation solved the riddle in Ran's mind. He confirmed that Garen was the great orc beastmaster who joined the party of heroes centuries ago. Ran was wondering why the orcs in this remote village were so strong. It made sense now this old man, who could kill a high-ranking demon without breaking a sweat, was a legendary figure. The boss continued to deny it, but Gull was ecstatic. He was almost foaming at the mouth, trying to pester the old man to confirm the story. Ran pulled Gull back, reminding the young orc to show some respect. "You must be respectful when referring to the strongest orc alive," he said sternly. "In the meantime, let's leave the village and explore some areas near the forests." A place where a gigantic tree came to life and was now screaming furiously, attacking with all its might. This wooden guardian of the forest, known as Impactor, was impressive. He manipulated underground routes to launch attacks. Their target was a group of exhausted human adventurers. The group was well balanced. A swordsman leader, a wizard, an axe warrior, and a big guy with a large knife. Even balanced, they were at the mercy of Impactor's roots, which launched them into the air. They had plenty of time to reflect on their bad decisions while flying. The swordsman leader, however, showed determination and courage. He managed to control the fall and land without hurting himself, quickly regaining his balance. His squad, however, was spread out and separated from the target monster. They were silver adventurers led by the swordsman named Red. He wanted his wizard to gather strength to launch an attack against the Lord of Trenth, but the wizard was out of energy, exhausted. Strum, another member of the group, was frustrated. They had been fighting the tree for almost a day without reaching its core. The tree continued to regenerate, and Great Scar, another adventurer, was losing hope. He didn't want to die, but the incessant fight against the regenerating tree was wearing them down. He still dreamed of his mother's hot pot when he returned home. Red, despite his foul mouth when he was angry, was determined to make sure this wasn't the end of their little group. For a moment, it looked like they would be annihilated by Mr. Trento's devastating blow. But then, a bright light exploded, and a sharp sound echoed through the forest. The life in the animated tree was completely extinguished. The dangerous monster was reduced to a pile of logs in front of the group of adventurers, and it seemed that there was only one person responsible for this turn of events. On top of the monster's corpse was the silhouette of a man. This was Spade, a platinum adventurer. He had only come to greet the weaker group. With one look, everyone recognized their savior. It was the infamous Spade. Spade looked at them and declared that this area was not for the faint of heart. Then he jumped, disappearing from sight. The guy didn't even bother to catch the rest of the monster, leaving it for the group to recover. Foal tried to stop Spade to thank him, but it was in vain. Red knew they were lucky. They were rescued by Spade, who usually works alone and doesn't care if people are grateful or not. He doesn't even want to meet anyone. A day later, they regained enough strength to continue traveling. However, Red thought it best to return home. Great Scar was feeling nostalgic after what happened to the monstrous tree. At least they would return home with a good amount of wood. Fire reassured Scar, reminding him that they needed to replenish their supplies. Additionally, they could now use Trent's logs and Boot to create things. As they walked through the dense forest, Strum caught everyone's attention, asking them to stop. The group crouched down and looked cautiously in the direction Strum pointed. It was a bloody, unconscious body, someone they knew very well. Vice Captain Easelride was lying on his back on the ground. Everyone recognized that it was a demon. Easel was seriously injured after receiving a brutal beating from Chief Gek. Red stopped everyone to assess the situation. They were in front of a blue-skinned body without ears. There was no doubt it was a demon. The scared man in the group wondered if the demons would stay alive, but he wasn't sure. He felt they needed to finish off the demon while he was defenseless, before he posed a greater threat. So, the group gathered all the courage they could muster. Without hurry, but without pause, they approached the demon with their weapons drawn. One weapon in particular stood out a familiar card. Head was the first to sense that something was wrong. His senses were quite sharp for a silver-ranked adventurer. Suddenly, a dark energy began to rise from above, blatantly targeting the group. Head was the first to notice the oddity of the situation and the first to react. From the front, he used his long sword and executed an impressive blade fury, creating a whirlwind that intercepted the numerous dark cards coming their way. At that moment, the rest of the group realized the gravity of the situation. Red had managed to cut and shred many letters, but in the process, many letters had also injured his flesh. Fine noticed the dark bloody cards and recognized a person's combat style, Spade. Spade appeared out of nowhere with a serious expression, declaring that the demon belonged to him. He summoned cards from the Suit of Hearts, initiating a massive attack of dark magic. As the silver-level adventurers looked on in fear, the giant cards began to descend rapidly. The dark letters produced a loud bang as they hit the ground, creating an unbreakable prison. Spade completed his technique with a flourish, calling it Prison of the Heart. The group was now trapped in a dark cage, with only the glowing hearts visible. Red and his team were furious. Red shouted from the darkness, demanding to know why Spade was helping a demon. Spade, indifferent, ignored their questions. Their decisions were none of their business. Before, this platinum-level adventurer had saved the group, but now he had captured them. The demon Spade saved could destroy them one day. Spade remained impassive and informed them that the prison would dissolve in 30 minutes, so they should keep quiet until then. Red couldn't believe Spade was as evil as the rumors said. This bothered Spade, but he didn't bother to explain. They knew nothing about him or his motivations. With a wave, Spade left, carrying the vice captain of the demon army. Meanwhile, in the village of Pubis, everyone gathered under a huge tree for a ceremony. Old Garen and Chief Gek announced that Ran the Dark Elf was now officially an ally of the Orcs. Ran was frustrated that no one could pronounce his name correctly. Chief Gek declared that they should welcome Ran as one of their own. The Orc villagers, including the excited Gull, applauded and celebrated Ran's inclusion. The chief explained that Ran would not stay in the village for long. Once the elf was completely recovered, he would leave to continue his mission. While he was there, everyone was supposed to treat him with respect. With that, the chief ended the meeting, and the crowd began to disperse. When everyone was leaving, Old Guren took the opportunity to provoke the boss. Gek tried to maintain his composure, but his full belly didn't help. He tried to retort, but he couldn't resist the look of the old man, who was in great shape for his age. This provocation was a daily routine between them. Gull, on the other hand, was super excited now that the meeting was over. Even covered in bandages, he declared that he was ready to conquer the mountains again. Recovered enough, he launched himself down the hill, ignoring the rest of the world. A few hours later, they met in front of the Borg restaurant. The boss already wanted Chef Groms to prepare his favorite dish, ramen topped with wyvern eggs. Ran ordered a Caesar salad, and the mayor ordered a meat-filled meal. Gull ran past them, almost causing an accident. He entered the restaurant thirsty, but instead of a cold drink, he was greeted with a flying knife. Fortunately, his quick reflexes saved him. The boss and the old man were almost hit too. The place, despite being a restaurant, kept everyone on their toes. The furious orc lady butcher had been looking for Gull for days because he hadn't brought the wyvern eggs as promised and was just fooling around. Ran observed the savagery of the orcs. Gull, in charge of serving the food, brought a plate full of meat. Even with the injuries from his aunt's beating, he continued to disrespect the boss and the old man, calling them old men. but he respected Ran. At the VIP table, old man Gurren talked about having someone accompany Ran to the Elven Kingdom and bring back one of his own. Gull, hearing this, became excited, but Chief agreed, suggesting that they bring back their best blacksmith, who was in the Elven Kingdom and was one of the best in the world. Old Gurren also wanted to send a personal message to Jess. Ran was still surprised by the casual and friendly way in which Gurren referred to his Lord Jasterel. Although they were old friends, the elf wanted to understand why they needed the best blacksmith. The chief explained that after the incident with the intruder, they started a war with the demons and needed better weapons to fight. Demons are vengeful, and after killing a high-ranking one, they will certainly come back with a vengeance. They needed to prepare, execute missions, and take all precautions. Gull, always curious, was eavesdropping on the conversation under the table. Rand felt guilty for the problems he brought to the village. Garen, wise, knew what the elf was thinking and gave a comforting smile, reinforcing that the artifact could not fall into the hands of the demons. He reminded Rand to remain vigilant until they reached the Elven Kingdom. The boss tried to lighten the mood by suggesting they eat before the food got cold. Garen exploded, accusing the boss of only thinking about food, while Gek just wanted to relieve the tension. The big question was who they should send on the mission. Gull, excited, jumped under the table when he heard this. Most of the warriors were still recovering, and they needed manpower to rebuild the village. They couldn't send Loss, as his intelligence was essential there. Trusting the boss with matters that required intellect was out of the question. Given his love of beer, the boss tried to respond to the sarcastic comment, but Garen continued listing candidates. The messenger was too clumsy to be considered. They decided to ask Rand what kind of companion he preferred. Meanwhile, Gull eavesdropped on the conversation. Rand thought as she chewed her salad. He wasn't used to having company, but if he was going to have someone, he had some ideas. First of all, Rand needed someone who could read maps and navigate, which Gull was really excited about. Just hearing that made him start dreaming of adventures. He ran to his aunt's butcher shop and ordered something called Gluttony Man. His aunt grabbed a strange tool and threw him towards the goal with so much force that it looked like a scene from Dragon Ball Z. Gull knew he had to live up to his word. He ran through the restaurant, crashing into the furniture, reminding himself that he needed to be more polite. After an attack from her aunt, Gull decided that please would be a permanent addition to her vocabulary. Recovered, he explored Puvis thoroughly, drawing a detailed map of the surroundings. He sat near the VIP table, proudly showing off his cartography skills. "Look what I did," he exclaimed, trying to get the attention of the old man and the boss. The 3 junior hunters went in to eat and called Gull to play. Mounted, the leader, was strict with his punishment of clearing the rubble, but the other 2 wanted a break. Gull, focused on his cartography, saw this as a challenge. He asked his aunt, the feared butcher, for a pencil who could use the knife on misbehaving children. The flying knife made the hunters freeze in fear, but Maudu caught the knife without any problems. The juniors admired their leader, while laughing and playing like fools. Rand continued to insist that her partner needed to have a good sense of direction. Considering this a great advantage, the little pest took the butcher's knife and started playing with it, even breaking the restaurant tables. These kids knew how to have fun with anything they came across. Meanwhile, Maudu remained serious, knowing they only had a few minutes to rest before returning to reconstruction work. The angry aunt had just prepared food at another table. When she realized that the children were messing up her precious furniture, she became furious. The young hunters ran for their lives while the furious aunt chased them with murderous eyes. Meanwhile, Rand realized that he would need a partner who was exceptionally fast. If they were caught by the terrifying aunt, the boys could end up at dinner that night. Gull, determined to show his speed, left the others behind. It seemed perfect for Rand's requirements. The other 3 hunters were captured, while Gull continued to run tirelessly. But there was one more criterion. Rand needed someone who was silent. Gull fell to his knees, defeated, and screamed in frustration. Her loud scream was the exact opposite of what Rand needed. The defeat allowed the aunt to catch up and get her nephew. Days later, many houses and stores were still under construction, but most of the city was operational. Today was Rand's farewell day. There would be a ceremony to pray for a safe journey, as the old man was sending a mysterious messenger with Rand. Nobody knew who it would be. The young hunters ran so as not to miss the ceremony. Rand had recovered quickly over the past few days. Now, with his full strength back, he met with Chief Gerk and Elder Garen to thank them for their care. He would return to Redstone Forest, and the Elder would pray for the spirits to guide the mission without a hitch. Chief Gerk didn't want the Elders to have all the big lines. With a smile, he also prayed for the spirits to guide Rand's safe return, ensuring that he would always be welcome in the village. Before leaving, many villagers had some last words and gifts for the Dark Elf. One orc in particular came running with a package. Smiling, she struggled to pronounce Rand's full name, but managed to hand over the gift, a token for a safe journey. During her time in Puvis, Rand learned that the orcs, despite being savage, were incredibly welcoming. He had never felt so accepted, not even in the Elven Kingdom. As he passed through the busy market, The vendors bid him a warm farewell. At the fish stand, the seller gave him the biggest fish as a parting gift. At the meat stall, they also gave him a generous portion. Despite knowing he was vegetarian, the seller insisted that he should eat like a man. Fortunately, the next stop was a fruit stand, where he was given a cornucopia of fresh fruit that would be useful on the trip. Another vendor gave him lots of spices for a tasty adventure. Rand began to feel overwhelmed by the villagers' generosity. A farmer even gave him a wide-brimmed hat to protect him from the sun. Jewelers prepared personalized jewelry, further increasing their charge. As he approached the village gate, another orc farmer appeared, insisting that Rand take a chicken as a souvenir. His hands were full of everything the generous villagers had given him to help with his adventure. Old Garen and Chief Gehrk stood in reflective silence on top of a cliff. The boss wondered if they had made the right decision this time. The old man believed so. They had given someone the opportunity to finally see their mother again. It had been 5 years since she had left to see the world, and she was the pride of the orcs. The old man saw it as destiny that she was in the elf kingdom at this time. Finally, Gull arrived at the village gate. All the villagers, including the junior hunters, gathered to see who the elder had sent on the crucial mission. To everyone's surprise, it was Gull, with his backpack ready for the adventure of a lifetime. The elder knew that Gull must miss his mother very much. Furthermore, no orc could move as fast as him. At first, most of the villagers were shocked and thought it was a joke. Some were actually happy for him. The farmer greeted him with a smile, and Motho was excited for his friend. Gull approached Ran, who was waiting patiently with her hands full. While together, Chief Gehrk and the old man continued their silent reflection. Gehrk wanted to ask if the old man also felt a different aura while fighting the demons. It was weak, but strong. Old Gurren knew it was an anomaly, none other than Gull. He noticed how the child's leg turned red for a moment when he pulled out a tooth from the demon's nest. Back at the village gate, Gull noticed Rand's stylish new farmer's hat. Rand wanted to confirm that the packages were safe in Gull's backpack. The young orc boasted that he had spent 12 years securing packages, so there was no reason to worry. Just as they were about to leave, a red bag was thrown from the crowd. Gull caught her with ease, showing off his athletic skills. Among the crowd, his butcher aunt was present. She took one last look at Gull and walked away, telling him to come back in one piece. They might not always agree, but Gull knew his aunt was silently thanking him. As for the mysterious aura around Gull's leg, the old man believed it was caused by a strange substance he accidentally ingested. With Ran holding all of the villagers' parting gifts and Gull carrying their provisions, the unlikely duo finally embarked on a mission that could change the course of history. Only the old man and a few high-ranking orcs knew anything special about Gull. Perhaps not even Gull himself knew it yet, but he possessed the blood of a legendary orc. It all started with a mysterious liquid in an ornate jar. Let's go back in time a little. The incident occurred 2 years ago during a peaceful period for the orcs of Orcopubis. Gull was just a boy who enjoyed his carefree days. That day, he was carrying 2 buckets full of water up a steep mountain. His eyes were fixed on his target, who he called the Rocky Detainer. This was the ugliest mountain near the city, hard and rocky. Gull believed that once she conquered the summit, she would become beautiful. Meanwhile, things were slow in Botan Tipu Bai, his residential area. The 3 junior hunters snitches were running errands and were bored. Gull continued carrying his buckets of water, determined to drink from them later. He adopted a running pose to maximize his initial burst of speed, preparing his legs for an explosive start. He emptied his mind, although there wasn't much to empty, and his face contorted even more as he began his frantic run. Gull might be foolish, but he pursued his goals with sheer will and endurance. To reach his destination, he first needed to climb down the cliff. The steep slope was dangerous, and he saw his first obstacle. He ran past the 3 grumblers, leaving them in the dust. Gull was so fast he looked like a running donkey. However, Mauta noticed the little brat. The grumblers complained about Gull's carefree antics as they did the heavy work of carrying bags of hay. Mauta decided to ignore it, knowing that they still had to take the fish food to the store after feeding the old people. For these boys, the food they were carrying was incredibly heavy, making them suspect that the old man was feeding his fish with rocks. When Gull reached the bottom of the slope, another obstacle presented itself: the uneven streets of Troxu Market. He did his best to avoid colliding with people in the market. He dodged among the crowd as best he could, even when faced with some unavoidable situations. But Gull didn't give up. He was determined to achieve his goal. Back at the top of the slope, the bumblers were about to give up under the weight of their burdens. Fortunately, they spotted 2 glasses of water that Gull had left behind. The troublesome trio did not hesitate to quench their thirst with Gull's water. They knew it was for him, but they didn't care. After drinking, they still pretended they were doing a good deed. The bumblers kicked Gull's precious water onto the floor and laughed. When they arrived at the warehouse, Mauta opened the security door and locked the padlocks. A flock of crows watched his actions with interest. These crows didn't seem to be up to any good. Back at Gull, he had just left the market and was already facing another obstacle: the dark forest. If the forest hit him, it would cause cuts and scrapes. Gull was not afraid of bleeding. In his mind, the forest seemed dark and dangerous. but in reality, it was just an ordinary forest. He moved with incredible athleticism, dodging as if his life depended on it. He twisted and turned his body, moving quickly. When Gull opened his eyes, he celebrated his successful infiltration of the darkleaf forest. Meanwhile, the three grumblers continued their tasks. Their next job was to take care of old Guren's fish. They really didn't want to feed those fish. No matter how you look at ugly fish, these types seem arrogant. They just swim and feed while relaxing. Furthermore, the look on these fish when they are about to be fed looks like royalty looking at peasants. But that doesn't matter. They just need to get rid of the food and get out of here. After all, the fish feasted on the food that the three crazy people laboriously climbed up the steep slope. In return, those fish looked on approvingly, as if their servants had just done a good job. One of the younger hunters, feeling vengeful, decided to urinate in the lake. Dobok, the degenerate, joined immediately. The two urinated in the lake, feeling like looters. Maudu, meanwhile, stood aside, resigned. I was already tired of their antics. While the three were distracted, the crows finally made their move. Meanwhile, Gull was nearing the end of his race to the top. All that was left was the final boss. Gull prepared to face the bald orc and realized the race was over. It was time to climb the big rock wall. The winds were strong, but they did not deter him. He dedicated time and sweat to the climb, and when he finally reached the top, he shouted in triumph. Gull had diligently prepared for this race. Finally, he conquered the highest mountain near the city. Gull the Conqueror has added yet another victory to his quest for conquest. After celebrating, he imagined himself as a wounded hero, needing his stored water to recover. No matter how tired he was, Gull returned to the Batari residential area and climbed the steep slope to the starting point. Arriving there, he discovered that his precious water had been sabotaged. His mind raced, imagining that someone in the orc village was a spy trying to sabotage him. Desperate with thirst, he considered drinking straight from the lake, but his keen sense of smell detected the smell of urine. Furthermore, dead fish floating in the water was a clear sign that it was contaminated. Gull already knew that the junior hunters were behind this disgusting prank. Still, he was extremely thirsty and needed to relieve himself. Desperate, he entered Pampar's open warehouse, which was supposed to be locked. The place was a mess, as the crows had feasted on the supplies. But Gull just wanted something to drink anything. He spotted a bottle that appeared to contain grape juice. The bottle was fancy, but at this point, any liquid would do. Without hesitation, he swallowed the contents. After almost emptying the bottle, Gull felt something stirring inside him. The taste was horrible, and he threw the bottle on the floor, still desperate for water. At that moment, oh boy, the messenger arrived and saw the chaos in the warehouse. Gull looked like a rat that had just looted the supplies. He had not quenched his thirst and did not have the strength or presence of mind to defend himself. Meanwhile, the junior hunters, as they descended the slope, realized that they had forgotten to lock the store and needed to return quickly. Gull was screaming in pain from the strange liquid he had drunk. Oh boy, seeing him in a suspicious state, immediately took out a medieval torture device to confront the boy. Oh boy believed he had caught Gull looting the warehouse. Gull was getting the punishment, but the real culprits, the crows, had eaten too much food and damaged the supplies. Oh boy explained everything to the old chief and Lawson, mentioning that Gull was in the lake, killing the fish. The incident at the warehouse was not that serious, but the death of some fish shocked everyone. Old Garen rushed to his precious lake with surprising speed. He held the bodies of his beloved KKB fish, crying inconsolably. The boss and others were preparing for the worst, indicating that things were about to get ugly. The old man was sobbing over the lake, as if he had lost a family member. He then inspected the damage to the warehouse. The only thing that caught his attention was the broken jug of mysterious liquid. These bottle shards could only contain one thing. It was demon blood that the old man was preserving as a souvenir of the war 200 years ago. Driven by urgency, he ran out of the warehouse. His mind went from sadness to worry and the urgent need to check on Gull. He couldn't allow something demonic to happen to the unlucky child. Seeing the urgency on the old man's face, the boss thought it was a threat, or maybe he just found the old man scary. Anyway, he thought Garen was about to hurt Gull. Chief Gak approached, determined to protect the boy, and tackled Garen to the ground. The two fought on the ground for a long time. The boss tried to argue to save Gull from Garen's supposed wrath. Lone was already tired of all this confusion. Chief Gak also wanted to save Gull, not just out of concern, but because the boy was one of the Wyvern's egg collectors, essential for perfect ramen. Elder Garen tried to clear up the misunderstanding, explaining that he needed to protect Gull, as the boy could not handle something so dangerous. A few meters away, the three little brats were hiding, watching the consequences of their mistakes. Mauda felt pathetic, believing that Gull was taking the blame and facing the situation like a true orc, even though he knew it was their fault. Gull, on the other hand, had no idea what was going on. He thought the messenger boy had framed him. The young hunters waited for Mauda to decide what to do. Mauda decided that it was his fault that Gull was being punished, and that they needed to save his friend. Meanwhile, Gull was approaching the terrifying flames below, and he didn't want to die yet. Desperate, he had a brilliantly stupid idea: sweat is water. Then he began to lick the sweat that ran down his face. The three bumblers finally arrived to get Gull out of trouble. They knew they had to cut the ropes to free him. Gull couldn't believe these guys were actually there to save him. One of them attacked the ropes around his legs while the other worked on his hands. They bit and chewed as if their lives depended on it. They pulled and pulled until the ropes were soaked with saliva. Gull was horrified that these idiots were drooling over him at that moment. Finally, the stiff ropes broke, resulting in a rather unpleasant escape. The young rescuers didn't even think about holding Gull, who then fell directly into the fire. Gull frantically rolled out of the flames as the boys tried to help put out the fire. Their method involved kicking Gull until the flames went out. Mauda called for Oboy's help as Gull continued to burn. Now, not only was Gull on fire, but he was also being slapped all over his body and head in a frantic attempt to put out the flames. The mischievous crows watched the orcs from the trees, enjoying the scene. The flames did not go out immediately, and even after putting out the fire, the orcs continued to slap Gull until he turned red. Old Gurren saw Gull's reddened skin and thought he was transforming into a blood orc, a legendary orc who could withstand the blood curse. At that moment, the pain from the burns was replaced by the pain from the slaps. Gull finally had enough and shouted at everyone, complaining that he was dying of thirst and could no longer take the slaps. To resolve the situation, he decided to use his secret weapon, the ultimate fart. A fart so powerful it sent all the orcs flying. The smell and impact of the fart even knocked the crows out of the trees. And so, Gull accidentally drank the blood that would change his life forever. Let's fast forward to the present. Gull and Ran have officially started their journey, and they still have a long way to go. They are currently in the dense rock forest, a name that describes the terrain well. The village of Pubi is situated in the middle of a dense and isolated forest. Luck favored them as they sailed, especially with Gull's knowledge of the area. Gull confidently assured Ran that they didn't even need the map, saying that the forest was all in his head. Then he took off in a random direction, and Ran followed him. Relying on Gull's confidence, Ran kept pace. Gull once again showed off his incredible speed. Running ahead with a confident smile, Ran kept up easily, thanks to his training as an assassin. Although Gull was just a young orc, he covered great distances with ease. His energy and enthusiasm contagious. Gull ran at incredible speed, even carrying a heavy backpack. There was definitely something special about this young orc and the way he moved. The only thing that bothered Ran was that Gull made as much noise as an elephant. It reminded Ran of Old Man Gurren's comment about Gull's lack of silence. Though even the old man swore by Gull's mobility, Ran, the best assassin in the Elven Kingdom, sighed in defeat. At least, Gull generously gave him an extra bag to carry the villagers' souvenirs. However, they forgot about the chicken, which was now forced to fly and follow the speedy duo. Gull loved shortcuts, and this time, his shortcut passed through Shrimmin City. He insisted that the mushrooms there were harmless. Ran agreed, finding the Shromies adorable. The small town was picturesque and peaceful, with the Shromies going about their business with dedication. Then, Gull arrived, his loud mouth attracting everyone's attention as he announced that they were just passing through. The mushrooms' mood turned sour upon seeing Gull. They quickly gathered together, their expressions filled with anger. Gull was disturbing their peace, and the mushroom warriors were already wielding their weapons, surrounding the duo. It was clear that these little ones were not happy with their presence. Ran could only wonder if they had done something to offend them. The mushroom leader explained that Gull had stolen their baby mushrooms in the past, and they now believed he had come back for more. They saw him as a despicable being who needed to be dealt with. Gull, however, seemed indifferent to the accusations. He continued to insist that he was on good terms with the Shromies, despite their obvious hostility. Proof of this hostility came in the form of green arrows passing close to Gull's precious possessions. Gull even had the audacity to get angry because the little ones were trying to hunt him. It seemed the duo's first significant obstacle had appeared, and it was in the form of mushroom warriors. Shrimmin's adepts, skilled in earth magic, used earth grip techniques to attempt to immobilize the pair. Thorny plant roots pierced and slid towards them at high speed. Fortunately, the duo had elite reaction times. Ran, although unaware of the entire story, remained vigilant against the little warriors, methodically redirecting their attacks. As an elite assassin, Ran could neutralize the little warriors without spilling blood. Even so, the situation was serious. The Shromies believed that Gull had evil intentions and saw Ran as his accomplice. Unbeknownst to Ran, Gull was already running for his life, willing to leave his partner behind without warning. At the end of the chaotic tunnel, Gull was fine, Ran was fine, and everything should be fine. However, doubts about Gull began to emerge. Gull's curiosity led them into one unnecessary situation after another. To support himself, Gull hunted and stored meat, which was repulsive to the vegetarian Ran. Every time Gull put away meat, Ran had to fight the urge to vomit in disgust. On the way, they encountered several strange creatures. Gull, always curious, wanted to interact with all of them. Some were hostile for no apparent reason, and Ran found herself in trouble due to Gull's reckless actions. This time, they were chased by ugly little monsters who loved to stab people. They tested their reaction skills and mobility as they traversed the most dangerous areas of the forest. They managed to escape reptilian horrors in the water and navigated through vivid, colorful but frightening trees in a bizarre part of the forest. They soon learned that speed alone would not always save them. Sometimes they needed to hide. On some occasions, they witnessed surreal phenomena, such as a golden draconic creature with 3 heads flying through the sky. Gull thought it was incredible, while Ran was terrified. At night, they tried to find discreet and comfortable places to camp, rest and eat. Gull was skilled at making fires, an essential skill for a long journey. However, Ran disagreed with this practice. He believed they should go unnoticed, especially at night, to avoid attracting trouble. Furthermore, Ran had packed some elven foods, which were more practical than cooking. Gull, curious about Ran's food, wanted to try it. Ran gave him some elven bread, and Gull gingerly chewed the crunchy delicacy. Soon after, Gull spat out the disgusting thing. For him, that wasn't even food. Ran explained that she ate this all the time because it was practical and would sustain her all day with one meal. As they argued about food, the forgotten chicken finally caught up with them, miraculously still alive. The little bird collapsed from exhaustion. Ran felt guilty for having forgotten the poor creature. Gull, on the other hand, laughed and gave the resilient chicken a thumbs up. The little bird almost died trying to follow the two. Ran, being compassionate, felt terrible for making the chicken chase them. This was the moment for Gull to show off his cooking skills. He took a coconut shell, placed it over the fire, and began to heat it evenly. When he was ready, Gull looked menacingly at the tired chicken. Now it was time for the main course. Ran watched in confusion as the chicken approached him, looked into his eyes, gave a perfect salute, and said goodbye. Soon after, Gull grabbed the chicken by the neck, exclaiming loudly. He believed the villagers gave him the chicken as a pet, but he thought it was stupid. For him, chickens were to be cooked and eaten. Ran commented that the orcs were really savage. While Gull only wanted KFC for dinner, Ran proposed a fishing trip as a distraction, mainly to keep the chicken safe. Gull reluctantly agreed, deciding to catch some fish before finishing with the chicken. The bird approached Ran again, celebrating his narrow escape and recognizing Ran as its new protector. With a feeling of gratitude, the chicken gave a double salute, showing respect. Meanwhile, Gull was busy cooking his specialty in the coconut shell. When it was ready, he cracked the shell in half, revealing a glistening, steaming dish with a perfect blend of ingredients. Gull handed half to Ran and kept the other half. Ran found the dish intriguing. She had never seen this type of food before. Gull explained that the dish was called bagel. Your aunt learned the recipe from Chef Gordon Ramsay, the best of all time. In the village, there was a tree called coconut. Inside the fruit, there was a sweet juice surrounded by its hard shell. Gull's aunt loved to use him as a vessel, calling him Vina Gull. Ran thought Gull was making up names that rhymed with his own. Maybe Gull had learned some tricks from his aunt, but he didn't like her bad temper. At the end of the night, Ran thought that perhaps he had underestimated young Gull. Even though it was only the first day of his dangerous journey,